Spotlights never fade evenly. Sometimes they leave a remarkable voice just outside the circle of fame. That voice belonged to Linda Davis. While millions sang along to her harmonies, few knew her name, and even fewer knew her story. In a world that often rewards flashover feeling, Linda's journey speaks to a different kind of legacy. One built not in the spotlight's glare, but in its quiet shadow. She wasn't chasing headlines or viral fame. She wasn't sculpted by a powerful label or lifted by celebrity connections. She was just a girl from a small Texas town with a voice too big for her body, and a dream that never quite matched the industry's mold. How does someone with so much talent become so easily overlooked? And what does it take to stand up and reclaim your voice after spending years in someone else's echo? Linda Davis was born in a place most people pass through without stopping. There were no grand studios or bustling agencies in her town, just long stretches of road, faith-filled Sundays, and the kind of determination that only comes from being told no too many times. As a child, she would sit for hours memorizing every vocal run Dolly Parton ever recorded. She wasn't just singing. She was studying, practicing, feeling. The hymns she led in her local church were more than just songs. They were early signs of the emotional storyteller she would become. But talent alone doesn't guarantee a path forward, especially in an industry that values looks, trends, and timing more than raw sincerity. Linda had no manager, no backstage passes, and no family ties to the music world. What she did have was an unshakable will and a voice that made people stop what they were doing and listen. She arrived in Nashville young and hungry, not for fame, but for a place at the table. She took every small opportunity that came her way: background vocals, demo tapes, any gig that allowed her to keep singing. For a while, it seemed like things might take off. A record deal came along, promising the kind of breakthrough she'd worked so hard for. But like so many deals in the music world, it fizzled without fanfare, leaving behind the bitter taste of unmet expectations. Linda wasn't after superstardom. She wanted to be respected, heard, valued. She wanted her voice to mean something. That quiet strength eventually led her to a life-changing opportunity. Not center stage, but beside it. In the early 90s, Reba McEntire was looking for someone solid, someone reliable, someone who wouldn't flinch in the face of a grieving, exhausted tour schedule. Reba had just experienced unimaginable loss and needed more than talent. She needed steadiness. Linda stepped into that space with grace, becoming the harmony that helped hold everything together. Their partnership was magnetic. On stage, their voices intertwined in ways that felt almost cinematic. Linda's warm, heartfelt tone perfectly complemented Reba's powerhouse vocals. It wasn't just music. It was storytelling. The song "Does He Love You" became an instant classic, filled with drama, tension, and an emotional honesty that resonated deeply with listeners. It soared to the top of the charts and earned them both a Grammy. For a moment, the world seemed to notice Linda Davis. But even in that spotlight, she was still framed as the other half. Her name was mentioned second, if at all. The song may have been a duet, but in the media's eyes, the spotlight belonged to Reba. This wasn't about ego. Linda didn't crave attention for its own sake. But there's a deep pain in being so close to recognition, so close to finally being seen, only to watch it slip through your fingers. Over time, that supporting role began to weigh on her. Behind the scenes, she was working just as hard as anyone. Touring relentlessly, rehearsing for hours, maintaining professionalism every step of the way. But the respect didn't always follow. Producers overlooked her when it came to solo opportunities. Executives gently nudged her towards safe, predictable material that sounded just like Reba's. Never mind that Linda had her own style, her own stories to tell. Fans cheered when she hit the harmony just right, but often didn't even know her name. Her face might have been familiar, but her identity remained largely invisible. The stage lights shone around her, never on her. Linda wasn't one to create drama or draw lines in the sand. But even the most resilient hearts have their breaking points. The turning moment came quietly, during a routine tour meeting. She'd asked politely if she could perform one of her own ballads during the show. The room went quiet. A long pause. Then someone said, "It doesn't really fit the flow." And just like that, a simple request was dismissed, her voice once again nudged to the side. That wasn't the moment she quit. But it was the moment she realized she needed more. Not applause. Not fame. Just space, to sing, to be heard, to matter. She didn't leave in anger. She left slowly, Like someone backing away from a place that once felt like home but had quietly stopped being safe. It was terrifying. Her life had been entwined with Reba's for so long that she had to ask herself, who am I without the harmony? Without the stage? Without the applause that wasn't even meant for me? She started performing in smaller venues again. Intimate places where the crowd wasn't thousands deep, but every listener truly listened. Churches, small-town theaters, community centers. There, in the quieter spaces, her music found room to breathe. It was no longer about climbing charts. It was about telling the truth. Linda's songs became deeply personal, filled with themes of motherhood, faith, heartbreak, and resilience. Industry gatekeepers labeled them too heavy, too raw, too unmarketable. But people, real people, started to show up. Not because she was famous, but because her music felt real. Slowly, she built a new kind of career. Not built on hype, but on connection. She mentored young women in the business, sharing the lessons no one ever taught her. She told them it was okay to say no, that their stories mattered. That being heard was more important than being seen. She helped others find their voices even as she was still learning how to use hers in full. One of the most beautiful parts of Linda's later career came through her family. Performing with her husband Lang Scott and daughter Hilary Scott, who would go on to become a star with Lady A, Linda experienced something rare. Generational harmony, not just in music but in meaning. Her voice was no longer a supporting act. It was part of a legacy that couldn't be ignored. Singing alongside her daughter didn't feel like passing the torch. It felt like holding it together. Her story, once filled with longing, had shifted into one of quiet satisfaction. She didn't rewrite history. She simply kept going, until the world had no choice but to listen. Today, Linda Davis isn't chasing anything. She doesn't need to. She's already arrived, even if it took longer than it should have. At 61, her voice carries not just notes, but a lifetime of emotion. Calm, clear, and unwavering. She may never have been the headline act on the world's biggest stages, but her impact is undeniable. She showed that being in the background doesn't mean being unimportant. That you can contribute something timeless even when the camera isn't on you. That endurance is its own form of success. She was always enough. The world just took its time catching up. The truth is, Linda Davis was never invisible. She was simply filtered out by an industry that didn't know how to value her kind of brilliance. But time has a way of revealing what really matters. Her music. Her heart. Her truth. They've all endured. And in the end, maybe that's the most powerful kind of legacy. A story not of overnight stardom, but of steady grace. Of sticking around. Of singing anyway. If Linda's story moved you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We share real stories of talent, perseverance, and the strength it takes to stand tall in an industry that often looks the other way. Because sometimes, the most powerful voices are the ones we almost didn't hear.